Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new video. In today's video we will be discussing the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 on Netflix. Went straight to streaming. So here's the thing, I was really hesitant but also excited about this movie because the original from the 70s is my favorite, or one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I kind of switched back between that and Halloween, but that oftentimes sits at the very top of my list. And if you've seen my video about my top 10 horror movies of all time, then you'll see me talk about that one in a little bit more depth as well. It didn't get a theatrical release, which was worrisome for such a big franchise like this already. Also, the trailer, while visually pretty stunning, kind of seemed like it was copying off of Halloween 2018. So I was kind of worried about this one, if I'm being honest, from the start. But I had to be excited because it's a new installment into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. But I need to prelude this discussion here. I need to give a little disclaimer. I have only seen 3 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. The 74 version, one of my favorite movies of all time, or favorite horrors of all time. The Jessica Biel version, the remake, which I was just kind of like meh about. I thought it was like on par with a lot of like early 2000s horror movies. It was alright. It was one of the better remakes in my opinion, but nowhere close to what that original did for me. Then I saw like the 2011 or 2012 3D one. And that one was really strange. It kind of just leaned into like the comedy aspect, I believe. I don't know. So I don't remember that much because it's been a while since I saw that, but I haven't really visited the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, and a big reason for that is because of how much I dearly love that original. I don't want to see these like cheesy spin-offs and sequels and just movies that don't do it justice. It's not fun for me the way I would have fun like when I watched the entire Nightmare on Elm Street series. I could kind of have fun with most of the movies. With Texas Chainsaw, it's just kind of like close to my heart, and that's why I haven't actually explored the series, and I still have no desire to do so. Okay, so let's get back to the new installment. Let's read the synopsis. So influencers looking to breathe new life into a Texas ghost town encounter Leatherface, the legendary killer who wears a mask of human skin, and this was released on February 18th, and I'm a little bit late with my video here. I actually saw it quite a few days ago. But I didn't have the chance to actually film a video, and so I'm going to be really late to the party. I know everybody has their videos out and I have not watched any yet. I don't want my review to be influenced quite yet, but I'm going to watch them all after I film this. So keeping things spoiler free here, I just want to talk about some of the issues I have with this movie. So the first one being the characters. I was so annoyed by some of the characters, and I'm going to bring them up on my phone here so I can refer to them by name as well. But the 2 main sisters are Melody and the younger teenage sister Lila. And Melody is just like, you cannot stand her from the beginning. At least that's how I felt about her. I did not find her to be a likable character in the least. Right? Like, I was actually actively annoyed with her for the entire film. And here's my issue with that, is when you have a main girl in a horror film, they have to be somebody that's somewhat relatable or likable that you can root for throughout the film, because they're the person that you're rooting for the most, if that makes sense. And so with that, with this movie, you don't really get that with Melody. Now, her younger sister Lila is less annoying, but she is almost like in the background a little bit. I would have preferred her to be more like the main girl, and she becomes a little bit more main girl towards like the middle end, but I would have preferred her to be like focused on or have more dialogue from her from the beginning, because everybody else was just like really unlikable and annoying. Like most horror movies, we get a few pointless friends that are kind of like background characters, and I didn't really have a huge issue with them, but also I didn't particularly like them either. Everybody was kind of just like unlikable and not really very relatable as a group. We also have this like townsperson who drives a truck and seems to annoy the main characters because he's like directly opposite of the other main characters, but he also doesn't seem very likable, and we don't really get to learn very much about him either. So the introduction and plot point with this character doesn't really go anywhere, which I honestly would have preferred there to be more of him, because I found this character to be interesting and maybe somebody that could have been more in the spotlight. Okay, so that's all I'm gonna say about that. And of course, if you've seen the trailer, you know that there's the return of Sally from the first movie, from the 1974 original. And that's another issue I had, was I was not really happy with the portrayal of Sally or the amount of screen time that she got, and I was interested in her story a bit more, but we weren't really given anything other than surface level, okay? And I just kind of want to go back to the original here, because something unique about that original movie is we have a group of characters that are not all like particularly likable or developed, but it's almost like they feel so much like just normal, real people, if that makes sense. And so naturally you do root for them throughout the movie. There was not one character in the original where their death actually brought me joy or made me feel excited. I was terrified for them, I was horrified, I was totally on their side, and that wasn't even due to like very much character development. I just thought that they seemed like real, pretty like normal people that you could relate to. And that's something that this movie completely lacked, which is one of the biggest downfalls of the film in my opinion, because you can't have a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie where you're relating more to Leatherface, not relating, that's probably not the best word, but you're rooting for him a bit more because you don't care about these characters. Like, I'm sorry, they're just not good characters. So very briefly, I'm going to talk about the story without giving anything away, but the story was another issue I had because it didn't really seem to like go anywhere or mean anything, and I think it was almost like a lazy way to rehash from the original and to try to blend like the original into a new story. Like, it just didn't really fit, if that makes sense, and it didn't feel like enough effort was put into it in certain ways. I felt like visually I really enjoyed a lot of it. Like, I enjoyed how it was filmed, the filmography and everything. Wait, why did I say filmography? I meant the cinematography. So the cinematography was great, but the thing is that didn't match up to the story or the characters. And the story just felt a little bit shallow, and it felt a bit like it took from Halloween 2018, sometimes completely directly actually. There's also another plot point they tried to like focus on at the beginning that has to do with why all the main characters are in this small town, like abandoned town in the first place, but I feel like that point never really went anywhere important, and it could have just been as well as like, oh, they were on a road trip and they stumbled across this town, or they were stopping on their way somewhere. You know, like just something like that probably would have felt the same, because honestly that plot point never really went anywhere important or significant. So here's another issue I have with the movie, is they try to, you know, go in a lot of different directions and have a lot of depth and these like deep, intense plot points, okay? And I'm not going to tell you what those plot points are, but some of the characters have this like intense, or one of the characters in particular has a very like scary backstory, like this really intense backstory that you think is actually going to go somewhere, and it never really goes very far. It doesn't really seem very relevant to the story to include so many flashbacks of this character's backstory. We also get like a lot of these cultural references almost, or these like political references. Actually, yeah, it's more like political references and a couple of like cultural references as well, and they just don't really fit in very well. And I really like love movies that go for that, but they're seamless. Like Get Out, for example, is a great example of a movie like that. But with this type of movie, it just feels kind of forced, and it's almost like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre does have some underlying themes, but they're not so ever present in the movie. They're just kind of subtle, and you can touch on that, reflect on that, and kind of like study that outside of the main plot of the movie, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't so integrated. It's not completely overtaking the dialogue, whereas in this movie all of those points are completely taking over the dialogue and the story, and so it just becomes very like in your face, on the nose, and just not really effective in my opinion, because I think when it's so on the nose, nobody is going to really take any of those points seriously or take them deeply as they were meant to be taken. I actually don't know how this film was meant to be taken, because a lot of the aspects are like fun and comedic, and then some of them are really deep and intense, and it's kind of like clashing themes, especially within a slasher like this. So let's get on to my last spoiler-free point, which is the issue I have with Leatherface completely changing personalities every movie. Like, he is a different character in every movie, and I don't know how old he's supposed to be in this movie. I would guess he's older than Michael Myers for sure, because Texas Chainsaw came out in 74 and he was already like maybe at least in his 20s. At that point, he must be like 80 years old, you know? So it's actually kind of crazy, but just putting that little fact aside, I think his personality in this movie is very much like this indestructible Michael Myers type of character, and I'm sure a lot of the other Texas Chainsaw movies do that, but I'm somebody who is all for that original Texas Chainsaw Massacre where we see Leatherface being dictated by his family and kind of just being afraid and running around insane. He's talking gibberish, he's kind of just like screaming, and you know, like he is erratic, like he is insane in that first one. That's part of what makes him so scary and what makes the movie so good. But in this one, he seems more like cold, calculated. And so I'm not really sure how I feel about that angle, but I'm sure that's not an issue independent to this film. I'm sure that's like something in the other Texas Chainsaw movies, which I still have no desire to actually watch. Okay, so let's get into a couple of things I actually did like about this movie. The kills and the gore was awesome. Even though I'm not a gore fan, I thought this gore was really fun and awesome. It wasn't like depressing gore like Terrifier. To me, that type of movie is just like, I don't want to watch it. Like, I feel like I shouldn't be watching it. But in this movie, the gore is excellent. It's just fun. It's a lot of fun. The kills are a lot of fun, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the spoiler section. I think that a lot of you guys would really enjoy the kills, but it might be the only thing you enjoy in the whole movie. I already mentioned I thought the visuals were also great, so that was the other thing that I enjoyed about this movie, but unfortunately, you guys, I think that's about all that I liked. There wasn't anything else that I really liked, okay? And that says a lot about this movie because there isn't enough substance here. And oh, and another problem is it wasn't actually scary to me, honestly. Like, the original one had me terrified. Like, terrified. That movie is so scary. This one, I mean, that one didn't even have much gore or anything. Like, it was a low-budget movie. It just managed to be so disturbing and scary. And this one, it has all the gore, all the effects, all of that, all the fun kills, but it's actually not scary. Okay, you guys, my rant about this is getting kind of long. Let's go ahead and cut it here to the spoiler section, so please click off the video if you haven't seen it yet. If you haven't seen the movie yet, go watch it. If you don't want to watch it though, then I guess continue watching this video. Honestly, this isn't the type of movie where you're going to be so depressed that you had anything spoiled for you, but you know, that being said, if you're interested in the movie, go check it out. Okay, so spoilers going forward from here, and I'm gonna try to keep this short. I don't want this video to get too long because I could just go on and on. But Melody, you guys, Melody was insufferable. Like, I could not stand her. She was so annoying, and you could tell that we were trying to create like this clash between two political parties, you know, two different types of people coming from different places, with her and the truck guy, which his name is like Rick or something, Richie, I don't know what his name is, but he shows up a lot and is kind of like in a conflict with Melody, it seems like. And I think that that was a really forced way to show the socioeconomic differences between these two groups of people, the people of the town and then the people coming into the town, the whole like gentrification thing which they're trying to touch upon. Like, what is this, like Candyman? Like, I don't know what they were trying to do with this movie. I was annoyed at Melody because she says something at the gas station loud enough for this trucker guy to hear, and then he hears her, and there's like this conflict between them, which is completely unnecessary. I would also like to note that she was driving a Tesla and he was using diesel for his truck, so there's that. And there was just like this forced conflict between these characters, you know, like it was too much. It was not subtle. It was just too in your face, and you can't root for either of these characters. I mean, the trucker guy is kind of like annoying in his own right, but then Melody is calling him out for things and creating her own conflicts with him for no reason when there doesn't need to be any conflicts, you know? So it's almost like you don't like anybody. Like, there's no side you can be on in this film. Like, that's my issue. I was on Leatherface's side pretty much. The only character I worried about was the younger sister, our final girl, okay? It's a spoiler section. I can talk about it. She's the final girl of this movie. I wanted more of her. I wanted to be following her more throughout the movie because she's our final girl, you know? Melody's not our final girl. Melody gets her head chopped off like this by Leatherface at the end, and I actually loved that. that party, as cheesy as it was. It felt very like Friday the 13th in my opinion, but I liked it because I didn't even care for that character at all, and I was rooting for Leatherface to just off her. So she was my favorite kill, as well as the sheriff who had been stabbed by his own broken bone. Okay, that part was pretty cool. That part really was. But something about Leatherface that annoyed me is his like indestructibleness and his super strength in this, which he didn't have in the first one. He was kind of just a crazy guy with a chainsaw, you know? And Michael Myers, like he's taking on this Michael Myers persona. Michael Myers is kind of like this supernatural almost entity, and Leatherface is 80 years old at this point probably, and he's like this extremely strong Michael Myers character now. I don't really get it. I mean, I don't have a huge issue with it in this type of movie, but it's kind of painful for me to see how this movie, like, you know, what direction this movie goes in, since I'm such a fan of the original. It's just really painful, but I'm gonna try to put that aside since I know the whole franchise kind of, you know, poops on the original. I don't know if I really enjoyed that party bus massacre scene as much as so many people did. I think I was like annoyed with those characters so much. And when Leatherface comes in to just like completely obliterate them all with a chainsaw, like yeah, there were some good kills. It was actually a massacre, so the film does like live up to its title. This film does. But I was just kind of annoyed, and I was laughing throughout that scene. I thought it was hilarious. Like, I don't know if it was intended to be that funny, but it was just hilarious. I think they spent a lot on like the gore and the effects of this movie because those were great, but everything else was kind of just subpar, you know? Oh, another weird issue I had with this was Melody kind of looking like she was out of Halloween from like 1979 or 78, 1979, 1980. Like her hair and the whole outfit and everything, it just didn't really fit into the modern vibes. And I was kind of confused by that. It kind of put me off, threw me off, and it felt like Melody was a character in this movie that didn't really belong, if that makes sense. Like, she belonged. She definitely belonged. She's like the leader of this group coming into the city to take over, but I don't know, like she just feels kind of out of place for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and I thought she was going to be our final girl, so I was just annoyed with her the whole time. I would have been fine if she was like the annoying older sister and we saw this all from Lila's perspective. If they had filmed it like that, I would have no issue with Melody being so annoying, but they filmed it more from the perspective of Melody up until like, you know, the second half of the movie, which by the way, I think this movie was kind of slow, and I know the original is actually pretty slow to get started on things too, but with this one they build up a lot of this like plot that you think is going to go somewhere by the end that it just doesn't. So I feel like the slowness of this wasn't really warranted. We all know what's going to happen at this point. It's, you know, it's Leatherface. Now let me go ahead and end this section with one part that just infuriates me, makes me so angry. What did they do to Sally in this movie? I love that she's a ranger. I absolutely love that. In my opinion though, I feel like she would have moved thousands of miles away after that incident that happened in '74, but that's just what I think. But apparently she's become a ranger and she seems super cool, super tough, but there's this really annoying sequence where she has so many opportunities to just shoot Leatherface and she doesn't. She just hesitates and she keeps getting closer. Finally, at one point, he just like obliterates her with his chainsaw. And I was angry at this. It's not even the fact that she died, it's the fact that she let herself die. Because she was just standing there, okay? Sally in '74 would have never done that. She was like jumping off, you know, second stories or out of windows, and she was trying to get out. She was trying to escape. And I feel like in this one, she would have had that willpower to just shoot Leatherface the first chance that she got because she knew how crazy he was and she knew what he was capable of. So I was just so annoyed. I know that that wasn't really like driven by her character. It was just like part of the plot to move the plot forward because they can't just kill off Leatherface too early. But then if that's the case, don't have her confront him with the gun, because I was so annoyed. And by the time that he obliterates her with the chainsaw, then it's almost like you're angry because you knew that she had so many chances. They also wanted to make Sally into Laurie Strode, and Sally is unfortunately not Laurie Strode. I would have preferred if they kind of just let Sally go in her own direction and, you know, like, I don't know what might have become of her at this point, but not everybody who goes through these traumatic experiences is going to become some, like, hardcore person like how Laurie Strode became in 2018, in Halloween 2018, excuse me, where she had done all this training and she, you know, took on that mentality. There are a lot of different ways that this could affect people, and I would like to see some other angles like on it in different movies where they bring back characters. Like in other requels, we don't always need our final girl to develop that Laurie Strode persona. Sorry guys, my camera ran out of space, I just had to adjust that, but I think I was saying that Sally, like, it almost seems like since she was like a direct copy of Laurie Strode in this, which just isn't Sally, you know, she's a different character altogether. I was annoyed because I felt like it was just rehashed from Halloween 2018 when I just wish they would have done something a little bit different, that's all. If they're gonna bring Sally back, the actress has passed away, like, we need to honor Sally. I think that Sally is a really underrated, undervalued final girl because just her, like, facial expressions and screaming and everything alone in the final act of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was so great. Like, it's so hard for actors to not have any dialogue in a huge portion of the film and have to rely just on acting, like screaming and all of that. And I think she did such a great job of, you know, we still want to root for her the whole time. We're following her along, we're rooting for her, we're seeing what she goes through, and we're like devastated at what she's going through. Like, that's good on the actress's part, but all I'm saying is I want a little bit more honor to Sally, you know? But I think I'm just gonna have to stop ranting there because I could go on forever, you guys. I'd like to know what you thought about the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Have you seen it yet? I hope you have if you've watched this video and all the spoilers. Either way though, I don't think you'll care very much, even if you spoiled it for yourself on purpose, honestly. I know a lot of people are opting out of watching it because of the reviews, but I say give it a chance if you're into gore because the gore and the kills are really fun in this movie. If you're a fan though of the original '74 version, this film is bound to make you quite angry. So yes, I'm disappointed, but I can't say that I'm really surprised. That's my conclusion for my rant/review on this movie. So you guys, let me know again in the comments below what you thought of the movie, and hopefully my next video won't be a rant. Hopefully I'll actually enjoy the next movie that I watch or the next new release, and I will see you guys in the next one. Oh, by the way, don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy what you're seeing on this channel. Like the video, it helps the channel out. I'm trying to grow it a little bit more now. I haven't been like super consistent because I've been busy, but I started the channel in the summer and I haven't posted a whole lot since then. But if you would like to see more from me, from this channel, don't forget to both subscribe and of course turn on the notifications to see when I post next, because I'll be talking about all the rest of the new releases for the rest of 2022 as well. Okay guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.